cloud Imperium Games, the studio behind Star Citizen and Squadron 42, released an 8-page accounting document a few weeks ago, which shows how the company has spent its funds since 2012. According to the document, Sega spent $193.3 million since 2012, with $40.23 million left in reserve. About $48.8 million of that was spent in 2017, putting the company's most recently reported monthly spending at about an average of $4 million. Revenue sources were split into 3 main categories, including Kickstarter pledges, subscriptions, and other income from partnerships with hardware and software vendors. Based on the graph provided, it does not seem like the company has been able to keep steady since 2014, after its initial explosion in revenue upon launch at the end of 2012 and into 2013. This is pretty interesting, as Star Citizen is still in development, but has already brought about $200 million in revenue for the company. Apparently, only 1% of that was due to traditional crowdfunding. The document goes on to point out that Sega's been spending more than it's bringing in through its revenue streams over the past 3 years. The company says that $826,000 went to general and administrative, including accounting and legal services, with the rest going into game development costs. The $46 million raised from a private investment last month will reportedly be going toward marketing and distribution efforts for Squadron 42, as well as development costs for Star Citizen, Cities, Skylines, Stellaris, and Surviving Mars developer Paradox Interactive has purchased Prison Architect from Introversion Software for an undisclosed fee. Paradox will specifically acquire all the rights and assets to the prison building and management sim, which has sold over 2 million copies across PC and consoles, and will take ownership of the franchise on all current and future platforms. In short, that means Paradox will be able to steer the direction and development of the series moving forward, and the company is keen to explore opportunities with the wider Architect property in the future. Introversion co-founder Mark Morris said the team ultimately chose to let another studio have a crack at the franchise, after taking it as far as it could over the past decade. Prison Architect thus been an intensely rewarding project for us, commented Morris. Every developer loves seeing their creations come to life. But through early access, launch on multiple platforms, and over a dozen post-launch content updates, we have been building and managing this building and management game for nearly a decade. I think we have taken Prison Architect just about as far as we can, and we are all eager to see where a team like Paradox can take it next. This also gives Introversion the chance to work on what we have got coming up next. So you have made a successful mod. Congratulations. Perhaps you have heard of the incredible success of mod to indie transformations, like Team Photos 2, DOTA, The Stanley Parable, and D-Raster, and you are thinking about transforming your mod into a standalone indie game too. I am going to offer some advice. Based on my recent experience, I made a story-driven mod called The Forgotten City for a popular RPG I'm not allowed to mention, and it's been downloaded by 9 million people, won a National Writers Guild Award, and received broad critical acclaim. Kotaku even called it ambitious enough to be its own game, so I am reimagining it as a standalone game, to be released in 2019. You can check out the trailer here. If you do like to see how it's shaping up, reimagining your mod as a standalone game is a massive undertaking, and you are going to want to do some exhaustive preparation beforehand. Get legal advice. Chances are you'll agree to some kind of end-user license agreement with the developer of the game you are modding. You probably did not even read it. Unfortunately, it may have terms which restrict your ability to reuse or promote the intellectual property you created. It's going to depend on the terms of the unit, so there's no one-size-fits-all approach here. But if you do not get legal advice, you may get a long way down the road to making your game, only to be the subject of legal action from that other developer. The long-round intellectual property ownership of mods is shrouded in mystery, so the best approach is to reach a clear written agreement with the other developer's legal team, which removes most of the uncertainty. That's what I did. With the help of a specialist video game lawyer, I'd recommend trying something similar. Ask yourself why your mod's fanbase would pay for an experience they have already had for free. This is a tough question, but a necessary one. To market your game, you will most likely be relying on support from the fanbase of your mod, at least in the beginning. Ask yourself why someone who enjoyed your mod would pay $20 for an experience similar to one they have already had. In other words, what improvements are you going to make to your game that were not present in the mod, and how are you going to communicate them to your fanbase? For the Forgotten City, I am adding a new setting, new twists and endings, upgraded visuals, a professional orchestral score and voice acting, mocap animations, among other things. 3. Talk to your fanbase about what they want. It's incredibly difficult to anticipate what gamers want. You can speculate all you want, but the best way to figure it out is by simply asking them. Consider running a survey via social media on SurveyMonkey to gauge interest in a standalone version of your mod. What do the numbers say? Which new features are they most excited about? 4. Estimate how much it's going to cost to make a prototype. Making an indie game is expensive. You are going to need funding from somewhere, discussed below. But before anyone will even consider funding your game, you will need to build a prototype. You might think, well, I have this mod. Sorry, your mod is not going to cut it. There's a massive amount of work involved in rebuilding a mod as a standalone game, particularly if you are using a different engine, and every potential investor knows it. They will need to see a standalone prototype, which you will need to put together at your own expense before you seek funding. 8. Prototype expenses. Here are the things you will need to budget for. There's no one-size-fits-all equation here, but as a ballpark figure, I do recommend setting aside at least United States $30,000 if you need to hire specialist help. It'll be cheaper if you do everything yourself, or partner with someone who's giving up their time for free. But having the support of an experienced professional is a huge advantage. B. Opportunity cost. I'd recommend setting aside a minimum of 6 months to make your prototype if you are working full-time, or a year part-time. Remember that if you quit your job to do this, and your annual income was previously about $50,000 a year, then your opportunity cost is $25,000 in addition to your direct expenses. Figure out how you are going to pay for development of the rest of your game. Unless you are wealthy enough to drop a few $100,000 on your game business, you are going to have to secure funding. There are 4 main sources of funding. Taking the leap. If you are confident you can handle the above challenges, and you may be ready to take the leap and begin turning your more into a standalone game. Indeed, that is risky and expensive, but it can be a wonderfully satisfying and lucrative business. Good luck, Newsbrave. Fat Shark, the Swedish developer behind Warhammer Type 2, has secured an investment from the Chinese video game and technology giant Tencent. Reports from the Swedish website Deal Digital say that the deal sets Tencent back around $56 million in exchange for a 36% stake, making the Chinese company the minority owner in Fat Shark. In a translated statement, Fat Shark CEO Martin Walland says that the investment sees Fat Shark retaining its independence and avoiding any major changes to its business. On Fat Shark's side, the shares up for grabs were partially newly issued shares and partially some recently put up for sale by a previous investor. One thing we never really addressed back when we were making the BitScript engine was localization of the tools. We supported localization of Figma's mod in the engine, of course, but the engine tools themselves were only available in English